Hey, how you doing? Brian Cain, host of the Coaching Matters Group Coaching podcast and program here. And I just wanted to take a moment and welcome everyone to the Coaching Matters Group Coaching podcast and program sponsored by Fundraising University. We'd like to take the time to say thank you to any current Fundraising University coaches and administrators joining us on the call tonight with Tim Albertson. Fundraising University is the top high school fundraising company in the United States, helping raise over $150 million for programs since its inception in 2009. Tonight, I'm super excited to welcome my friend and coach, Tim Albertson, to the Coaching Matters Group Coaching program to talk about team building and culture development strategies for coaches. Tim is an MPM certified coach. He's the athletic director at Stowe High School in Stowe, Vermont, in his first season there, about 5 months in. He's received his master's in sports administration from Southern New Hampshire University. And as a high school baseball coach at Champlain Valley Union High School, Tim has led the Red Hawks to 4 state championships, 2012, 13, 19, and 2021. He was a 5-time state coach of the year. He's also coached wrestling and football. Super excited to welcome Coach Tim Albertson tonight to talk about team building and culture development for all coaches. Tim, thanks for being with us, man. Glad you're here.
Tanner, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah.
First off, congrats to you with Corbin on Cy Young.
Yeah. Super exciting last week. Corbin Burns, Cy Young Award winner. You know, if you haven't yet checked out that podcast, I'll put a link to that inside of our chat here. But, you know, pretty cool when one of our MPM trained athletes achieves something like that, is the best pitcher in baseball. So super excited about that. And Tim, having been a baseball coach for so long and been, at the highest level in the state of Vermont, 4 state championships, what are some of the things that you have found a lot of success with, strategies around team building and culture creation that you feel like any of the high school coaches, college coaches that are on this call tonight, they might be able to take and use in their programs? What are some of those key strategies?
I think the first thing is you got to love what you do. You got to love what you do. You got to show a lot of passion. You got to put your whole heart into it. And the kids your players need to know it. The second thing is you got to care for your kids. Okay. That's probably the biggest thing is you got to show them you care, that you're in it, not just for the W's, but you're in it for them as well, that you want to see them be successful. Once you can get in their hearts, they're going to do anything for you. And Kaner, I'm going to start sharing my screen here.
Yeah.
Let's go here.
Beautiful. Screen share tonight. It's the first on Coaching Matters. I love this. Let's go.
Is this working? Is it there for you?
You're good to go, brother. Absolutely.
All righty. So let's get here. Kaner already gave you my whole background, but the other thing he didn't mention, I'm a husband and a father. Lucky to be a father for 2 beautiful daughters. I've been married for 12 years, and obviously the rest he's already told you. So we're going to get past that. Here's the big thing. What changed my life was Brian Cain. I met Brian in 2005. I believe that's when you were up at Mount Mansfield.
Yep.
And Brian handed me a binder full of DVDs and CDs. And that kind of changed everything moving forward. That was a collection of all of his recordings that he had ever had with anybody and everybody who would meet with him. So that was awesome. The Pride program I bring up in there. That's something I've used for my program. And that was the first of the mental program that I use. And it's personal responsibility and daily excellence. It was a program that Brian originated, has definitely moved on beyond, but I always thought it was one of his best. Read books, ABCA conference. There's a lot of stories there for Brian and I. I've had Brian with me 3 times. So, and then obviously the rest. Keys to success, I already talked about. You got to have the energy day in and day out. We talk about it with our teams. How many touches can we get? Fist bumps. I coach baseball. So every time you come around third, at some point, whether you stop or not, we're going to have some sort of contact when somebody comes in, whether they strike out, whether they hit a home run, they bunt somebody over, do something productive. There's some sort of fist bump or congratulations or nice job, or we'll get them better. But we got to create that buy-in as coaches, for sure. We're looking at it. We want to be able to get everybody involved and start to grasp what we are looking to develop as coaches, as people, CEOs, whatever we're doing. Me as an athletic director, I came into a new school this year and I had to get people to understand who I am and why I'm there. Okay. Signs of success, promote. You got to put picture. If you want things to change in your culture, you've got to advertise as much as possible. I'm sure you've heard this from Brian before, but I can't tell you enough. We used to put signs up in the dugout every single day. And the kids would always come running into the dugout and look and start reading and try and figure things out. If we had a game plan for that day, we'd post it up, and we'd make sure it was plastered all over the dugout. You know, you got to have, as a team, we got to develop something, and we're going to talk about it here. I know you've spoken about core covenants and the MVP process, but you got to have something to go to as a team. Okay, that one word that's going to make your team come back together. You know, whether it's agape or whether it's just, you know, I think we had a bunch of different, Kaizen was one of the first ones we had, you know, and that was the biggest thing that the kids bought into, is getting better daily, you know, and how we can bring that together and do that together. So something we'd say, you know, things got tough. Hey guys, Kaizen, or the old Jocko Willink, good, let's keep going. Surround yourself with people who have similar goals and that can make you better. Okay. I want to make sure that I'm getting myself better as well as making the rest of my team better, but I need people who are going to support and send the same message that I am. I think that's really crucial. And the biggest thing with your teams, create a sense of belonging. And as coaches and as for our kids, don't stop learning. So I think the big point is setting the tone. Okay. I came into CVU as a brand new coach. The program had kind of gone downhill a little bit. And I brought in this, brought pride back to the program. I brought this red booklet, and I'm going to share that booklet for you real quick. Let me get into it here.
In the red book, is that like Nick Saban's blue book, which is kind of like the mindset and the operating sort of culture playbook for your program?
This is the sense of expectations and kind of what I try not to let anything. Let's see if it comes up. Is this being seen here?
No, I still see setting the tone. Maybe do a screen stop and then restart the share.
All right, stop share. Boom. Let's see, screen one. All right, share. All right, and get to the top here.
Yep, perfect. Now we see it.
All right, so every season I started off with this booklet every year. This is a 37-page document. I'm not going to show it to you all, but first thing it says is success is a result of how hard we work. You work, prepare, practice, and strive to improve every day. First thing my kids are going to read about the upcoming season. Okay. I was a part of 4 or 5 championships there at CVU. So we make sure that we say, hey, you know what, this is the ultimate goal. We talk about how the great things that go on in our program. We set the tone, get the kids to buy into the fact that how important it is and how great it is to be a part of our program. You know, and then as I continue to go through, we talk about what our goals are. It's not always about, it's about promoting and winning and promote winning, set high standards and go after league championships. And obviously we want to go after state championships. But that's not the number one thing we talk about, is provide a top-notch baseball experience for every player in the program. We're going to win. We all know that winning is a byproduct of the things that you do day after day after day after day to get yourself to that point, right? The goals that we set during games are, yes, we want to win the game, but how are we going to do that? Maybe we got to score a run this inning. We got to get somebody on base. We got to move that person over. We got to hit that person in. That's how we're going to move ourselves. We're going to focus on that moment, that inning, whichever. Same thing we talk about with the program. It's more than the game. Talking about life skills, the values that it all sets, how it applies beyond baseball, beyond whatever you're doing within your school. I want my kids to be great citizens. So, and this whole booklet continues to go through. It talks about my staff. I bring in the history of our program. I talk about all the kids that have had success, the award winners, kids that have gone on to play in college. I just had 2 kids signed to go play for Rob Cole over at Manhattan College.
Nice.
So I'm going to stop sharing this.
Tim, is it possible? Could you maybe upload that document into the Zoom chat here so we could get that and everybody could have that as a PDF and they can kind of use that as a guide?
Yep, I can. I'll send that to you.
Perfect. Yeah. If you email that to me, I can either send it out to everybody, or if you want to just upload it in the chat, you can. You know, with that red book that you have, is that something
Yeah.
where you sit in like one meeting and go over it with your whole team, or is it something that you kind of do a page a day? I know John Wooden, one of the things he said is he never gave his players more than one page of their playbook or rule book at a time because he wanted them to focus solely on that one page.
This was something I gave to every single kid who came out for our program. So that way they could go, they could take it home, share it with their families, share it with their parents. I wanted them to read it because I wanted there to be no questions asked. Oop, did you lose me here? All right, you got me back? You see me again? Can't hear you.
We can hear
go.
you. I can't see you.
Okay, I don't know what's happening with my all right, I don't know what happened to my visual,
All
but
good.
I didn't touch anything. Anyway, it was something that I had with me all the time that I gave out to every single kid. So let me see. Can you see this?
Yep. Now we can see your screen. So I think we are now back to setting the tone.
Yep. So that's what the red booklet did. It set the tone for everything else. It set the standards, and just kind of talked about our goals, which I already explained. I talked about the mental work. You know, mental work is huge. So moving on to something different. What sets your program apart from everybody else? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, we were the mentally strongest kids on the field. We had the mentally strongest in the state. We worked on this every single day, whether it was in our routines during BP, whether it was talking about our routines in between practice or in between ground balls, or we were just talking about everything. The fact is I had always told my kids we would never go into a game unprepared. Okay, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. You've all heard that line before. But I made sure that when we continued to progress, we were getting better in every single game.
Question
We were
for
going
you,
to be
Tim.
better than everybody else. Yeah.
Question for you. So I love the fact that you said our team was the most mentally tough team in the state, and when you were on the field anytime. What is it that allowed you to see? Because I know you're an NPM trained coach and you've been into sports psychology now for over a decade. How is it that you could go out to a state championship game, which you won 4 of, or go into these games and you can look at a team, in Vermont, the talent gap is not big, right? Everyone's kind of about the same. There might be one Division I college baseball player coming out a year, maybe every 2 or 3 years there's one, right? There's not a ton. So the talent gap is pretty similar amongst those bigger schools in Vermont. How did you know you were the most mentally tough team? What stuff would you see your team do that would say these guys are mentally tough, and other teams maybe do that would say they don't do the training that we do?
We made sure I could always see it in the way we approach when we came to games. Like when we arrived at Centennial, our kids looked like they had already been there. And it wasn't because we had played there the year before or because all 4 of our championships were back to back in 2 separate time periods. But you could tell that they were comfortable, that they were relaxed in a good way with having those butterflies that I always encourage. Butterflies means you care. We knew that we were ready. We knew that we were ready to put our best foot forward. We had prepped ourselves, but we also had things to take us back to. I'm sure Brian's talked to you throughout this about just being able to have a focal point or have something to go to when adversity hits the fan. And just, we were always able to come in, have that confidence, knowing that we had put on our uniforms. School was over, we put on our uniforms, transformed into baseball players, and we knew that we were making that park our home. It didn't matter which dugout we were in, we were ready to go.
Let's unpack that for a second. It's funny. I just got off a call with the LSU gymnastics team before we got onto this call. And that was one of the things I talked about. It was a call with their first year student athletes. And it was one of the things we talked about was when you change your clothes, you change your being, right? When you change from your street clothes into your baseball gear or your street clothes into your gymnastics gear, whatever sport you're coaching, there's a time period where people go into a locker room somewhere and they change their clothes from student into athlete. Was that something that you were intentional about teaching them, was when you change your clothes, you change your mindset, and this is how we get present for practice?
Yep. So I actually put up the Superman symbol on the back of the locker room door. So every time they looked at it, they would see that symbol as I walked out. So they knew they'd either just transformed into a baseball player, because we always made them put on baseball uniforms and wear t-shirts with our logo on it. And then as they walked out, they would see that, and then they would come, and there's a road that actually crosses from our school to our field. We're very fortunate to be next to the field, the school. And they knew that once they got onto that grass, it was baseball time. And they knew once they came off and across that pavement, across the road, they knew that, you know what, it's over. That game's over with. We're done. Now I'm going to go take my uniform off. I'm going to go get back in my street clothes, and everything I had going on before is now back and present. I got to focus on that. That game's over.
Love that. I love that. Beautiful. Tim, continue, man. This is great. Other
Yep.
mental game strategies that you found success with your high school athletes, whether it was coaching baseball, football, wrestling, or things that maybe you've now tried to implement as an athletic director that you think other coaches on this call could take and use to help build that mental toughness, build that team, and build that culture in their program?
Yeah, setting the bar and raising it was one of the first things I learned moving forward, is that we're gonna set that bar. Here's where we want to go. Once we improve, we're going to continue to go and continue to improve. Go beyond the minimum. You know, you can get away with playing baseball and just do what you do and be really good at what you do. But if you want to set that standard, increase everybody else's expectations, you've got to continue to get better. So that was one of the things that we always taught is, and I know that you've talked about before, is we're going to get 1% better. And one of the quotes that actually stood out to me, and this came from an alumnus after he graduated, was like, do today what others won't, so tomorrow you can do what others can't. So we did multiple things in practice so that the next day we could do something even more, a little elite, in order to be better than the next team. I always talk to my teams about being GPA leaders. I want guys that are going to be high academic achievers. I want that are taking AP courses, that are pushing themselves to be better. We talk.
No, that's great. I love that. Keep going, Tim.
Core covenants. I know that I'm pretty sure you've probably covered this, but I'm going to go through it anyway. I always had a core covenant for our team. I had a shirt, and which I couldn't find the picture of, but that was the shape of a baseball field that had words that lined the baselines that went across from first to second, second to third. The first baseline was hustle. You know, the third baseline to home plate was grit. We're going to find a way to score. That's how hard, that's what we do. That's how we do things. Aggressive was right across the mound. So we used different words that everybody would understand. And I actually took all those words from my alumni after my first 5 years here coaching when I was at CVU. And those were the common words that came about. Team, brotherhood were some other things that kind of came about. We also did it for the season. So every season we'd set, okay, what is going to stand us out this year from the other teams that have been involved at CVU? And that's where those one words would come out. Like I said, Kaizen was 1 year. We had multiple, finish the job was 1 year. You know, they had made it into the playoffs. Now it's our time to finish it. We're going to be better than we were last year. So we did different things. Yep.
Yeah, Tim, I want you to unpack that more in the one word in terms of, did you have the players come up with their one word? Did they contribute to that? Was that something that you picked before the season? Like expand on that one word.
Yep.
Coaching, that one word concept, because I think it's something I've used a lot with teams. Jim Schlossnagle, now the baseball coach at A&M, who was at TCU, when players would show up on campus, he'd give them all a baseball and they would write one word on it for the year. And if you were there for 4 or 5 years, you'd have one ball with 4 or 5 words on it. And the crazy thing is now, 10 years later, since we started doing that, I actually work with one of their former players in a one-on-one coaching capacity. He's a vice president of a real estate company in Dallas. And every time we get on a call, on the bookshelf behind his desk, I can see that one word baseball that he's had 10 years since being at TCU. So I think this concept of one word focus is something that you can install in your high school program, but they can take with them forever.
Absolutely. This was something that I may have slightly guided, just to kind of give them questions like, what type of team are you going to be this year? Well, coach, we're going to be guys that are focused. Okay. Put focus up on the board. Okay. What else are we going to be? Coach, we're going to hustle all the time. All right. Put hustle up there. Coach, we're going to be relentless. Okay. Talk to me about being relentless. Okay. Well, coach, we're never going to give up. We're going to be a team that plays to the end. Okay. And they would go through and they would create like 4 or 5 words, and we would put those 5 words underneath the one word that they decided was going to be their go-to. And that's where all of a sudden it would be like, okay, so how are we going to define this season? Okay, when you get into this, how are you going to motivate the team with one word when all of a sudden, again, stuff's starting to hit the fan? What are we going to do? Well, coach, I'm going to say Kaizen to the team, or I'm going to say now, or win, because that's what's important now. We're going to focus on this moment. Fellas, finish the job. You know, I know that's a few words, but it was one of those phrases that they all locked in on. It just was easier. We had hope was 1 year because we had a lot going on at our school. So we used each of the letters to dictate something different that was going on, so that we knew it could always be worse, or something else was always happening. We're okay right now. We're going to get through this. One of those moments. So that's kind of how we used our one word.
Beautiful. So you're kind of you're and what your sounds like you're doing is you're helping your student athletes create a language that they can use to help lead, whether that language be around, a motto that you had for the year of one pitch warriors or so what next pitch, but you're giving them opportunities and things to go to when it gets hard. Like you said, Jocko Good, which is a great one, to be able to get back onto the productive path.
Yep. I know 1PK was one. I'm grateful you just said that. DTD, dominate the day, was one of the phrases we use as well. Next thing is just promote those, put them on, use them on your social media feeds, put them on your website, put them on any message you email or that automatically texts out to your kids. Put it on clothing. We always talk about Heart and Hustle Award. I had a Heart and Hustle Award after every game. It was the guy who showed the most grit. Sometimes it was the guy who got the most foul balls. Cain always talked to me about the Yellow Shirt Award, the guy who had the best defensive day. He got to wear the yellow shirt for practice the next day. Just being able to kind of put that motto into action. Like I said, signs in the locker room, on web pages, learn, and just make sure for you, and this is where I predict the guidance, is just make sure it adds into your philosophy, both offensively, defensively, on the mound, at the plate. Because you want to be able to incorporate that core covenant in every single thing that your team does.
Love that. Tim, we had a great question come in here that I want to have you address while we're on the topic. It came in from Coach Al. And Coach Al he says, how does Coach Albertson reinforce, bring to life those concepts from the t-shirt to everyday practice? Like, how do you bring those core covenants to practice every day? And you kind of talked about creating the language and then seeing it, right? You talked about promoting with having the t-shirt given to the player who brings that to life that day at practice. Is there anything else that you did to help take those from being words on a wall or words on a t-shirt into everyday actions?
Yeah, it's something we talk about every day, whether it was before or after practice. It was something I held to them. So the way we presented ourselves during practice, if we didn't have a great day, hey fellas, did we really show that we had focus today? Did we really show that we did all of this? Or were we relentless in kind of how we went about getting this done? Or did we kind of just sit back and be like, all right, just another thing we got to do today? It was something that we made sure, like when we went through those core covenants, we talked about, how does it look in practice? How do these things look in the community? How do these things look when we're in school? How do these look when we're on the field and when we're off the field? So we tried to make sure that we related that.
So you tied your core principles or your core covenants into specific behaviors of what it looks like on and off the field. So if we're going to say we're going to be relentless, specifically relentless is sitting in the front row. Relentless is getting to the gym 4 days a week in the off season. Relentless is extra work after practice twice a week on your own. Did you address those specific behaviors?
Yes, absolutely, all the time. And it's one of those things as we continue to move forward. I actually hit upon all that in a little bit. If I have time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to cruise.
All right, keep going here, Tim. You're good, buddy.
One of the things we talk about is being role models. Well, it starts with us as the head person, the person on the top, and it all trickles down in everything we do. So as we promote to our assistants promote to our players promote to the fans and families when they're out and about, or to their community members. And, just being able to make sure we present ourselves the way we say. That's where we go back to those core covenants. We talked about those pieces. I'm going to be into whatever I'm doing. I'm going to be involved when I'm there. I'm going to be where my feet are. Make people want to be a part of my program, and because of the way what we do and how we do it. That's the big thing. That's how I talk to my guys about role modeling. I utilize my alumni. I have them come back, talk to my kids, talk to them about what carried over from our program into their regular lives. I've now got kids that have been out of school for 13 years that come back and I got to see, and they're talking about, one of the things, like I said, Kaizen. Coach, I was sitting in class and Kaizen came in my business class. And I was like, hey, I know exactly what this is all about. And then obviously one of the bigger things is just making sure our kids express gratitude in everything and anything that they do. Just being able to say, you know what, hey, mom and dad, thanks for all your support. Kind of like when we do at the end of our year. Getting into traditions, create traditions. One of the things we used to do is every 3 years, and I'm going to jump down a little bit, do something special. We used to go to Cooperstown. I live close enough to the Hall of Fame, so I was grateful. It's a 5-hour trip, but we go down with our team every 3 years. We'd scrimmage out of state. I'd go and find some teams that were better than us and that I hoped were better than us to go and play. I would try and play at a big venue. Okay. The biggest venue we have in Vermont is Centennial Field. It's one of the oldest ballparks in the country, but it's not as grand as going and playing up in Montreal or being able to go play at Texas A&M or State College on their fields. Doing something special. I used to have spike ball tournaments, dodgeball tournaments, 2-ball tournaments. Kids get crazy and fanatic about those. And when you start adding a team element to those things, they start supporting one another. They start making sure each other's doing the right things. A lot of fun. And then we usually have some sort of quick celebration for the end of those events. So when I talk about the Red Hawk way, I'll go back to the top, how we do things. When I'm sitting in there and I show those kids that booklet, what I tell them, that red booklet that I talked about at the beginning, here's the things that we know. We hustle on and off the field all the time. We want to be on the field before our opponent's off, and we want to be off the field before our opponent is fully on there. We want to be ready, being able to see as many pitches as we want. We want to make sure that we can have some quick conferences so that we're not missing out. We can see as many pitches as possible, or we can rush the other team. We want to set the tone. We don't want the tone to be set against us. We keep things. My biggest thing when I was growing up is make sure things are left better than you found them. Well, I feel like I've did that after the last 13 years before I became an AD, but I felt like I left CVU better than it was. Our dugouts, okay? I was going through first kid after the championship game, there was another game after ours. Kids coming out, I'm cleaning up the dugout because my kids are celebrating. And one of the kids that's going to be in my school comes up and extends his hand and says, I just heard you're going to be our new athletic director. Can I help you clean up the dugout? It's the greatest thing I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to be at this school. I just can't wait for this to happen. But you know, the other thing was the dugout when we got into it was atrocious from a kid who I had coached prior to that. So, and he had just won it. So, but it was his first championship. So I let him go with it, but leave things better than they were. You know, have community events. You know, unfortunately, we had some kids whose family or themselves had cancer. So we tried to do things to support them, have fundraisers and do some great things. One of the kids that I coached survived leukemia, is actually doing really great. Went down to play some college ball down at Union College this past year. Mental health games, as you know, mental health has been a big concentration recently. Unfortunately, right before our 2019 season, one of my players took his life. And so we decided that we were going to support he and his family. And we have now done a mental health game each season in order to make sure that we're checking in and get that awareness out for everybody. And we continue to. We go to they have some hope rows and things like that. And that was part of the reason why that year we chose hope. Mm-hmm. So, but one of the last thing I talk about here is actually, I kind of stole it from the All Blacks, but I've always felt this way. The New Zealand rugby team, passing of the torch, leave the uniform better than you received it. You know, I want kids to take pride, and when kids come into our program and when they come up through the ranks, whether it's the JV team or the freshman team, and they get up, I want them to feel like they're getting something that they need to leave better than they got it. So.
Love that. Love creating traditions, you know, and Tim, I think this is a good point to kind of press pause for a second. And I just want to take a moment to once again, recognized fundraising university, and owner Mike Bahoon is the official sponsor for the Coaching Matters Group Coaching Podcast. And current coaches, if you'd like to be a Coaching Matters ambassador coach in your state and earn between $5,000 and $20,000 part-time, contact Mike Bahoon, MBAHUN, at fundraising, the letter U, fundraisingu.net. That's M Bahoon at fundraisingu.net to acquire about our new ambassador coach program. And thanks for being with us, man. If you could kind of continue down the path that you were on, talking about team building and culture and mental performance that you use not only as an athletic director, but also used as a coach.
You bet, Brian. And again, I apologize. I don't know why I'm having problems with my video,
good.
But I apologize. So here we go. So I've got build up your youth program. So one of the things that I always found useful for me was going in and being a part of like our Little Leagues or our Babe Ruths or our Legion programs and making presentations into those. And just making sure that I bring my players in. I want these guys, those kids and those coaches to see our players so that they bring their kids out to see our teams play. I have them demonstrate the drills, educate them. I try to educate them about what I see for a philosophy. I try and give them advice in regards to kind of what they should be focused on. And theirs, I think sometimes we try to accelerate our youth too quickly before giving them the fundamental skills of what they need. I try and give them as many booklets. I created a couple booklets. I don't have it electronically though, that would add skills and drills that I would provide those programs. And hopefully they could go and put those on their websites. I'd have the team either go to a couple of the Little League practices or invite those teams to come to our practices so that we could do something or come be a part of a special game that we were hosting. I try to be active at all events. I try to be very visible. I went to all-star games, whether it was the regionals or if we had a team from our district that made states, I try and make sure and go, as well as being a part of their opening day ceremonies at their schools or at their fields. And lastly, we hosted a camp for Little League at our school, where actually all my players ran the whole thing, and I kind of just orchestrated and made sure that everybody was getting what they needed during those camps. One of the things I talk about is getting 1% better. Find ways to make yourself and your team better. One of the things that kind of got us to the championship this last year is we were atrocious 2 games in a row with our defense. We had 8 errors in one game where we ended up giving up 8 runs. We ended up losing 8-6. And then we had one game where we went in by 2 and we couldn't get an out. Balls were going through legs, making bad throws. We weren't using our process and staying strong mentally. So the kids, all of a sudden, we problem shot. We talked about well, better, how. What can we do well? What did we do well today? What do we need to do better? And how are we going to do it? Well, we got done that game and they said, Coach, we're going to start taking more ground balls. We're going to start throwing across the diamond like we mean it every time we do it. I will tell you that our games got better. Our defense got more. We went from averaging like 3 errors a game to a half an error a game by the end of the season in a 20 game season. The kids would go and they would lift in the mornings. They'd go for runs. They found ways to get together and go take care of that. Kids were doing mental reps. We didn't get out in the outfield. We didn't, and do like a mental training there, but we would have the kids during warm-ups or during practice taking mental reps when they weren't getting physical reps. This is something that Brian taught me when he first came out. He actually came and watched one of my practices and he was like, hey, why are the guys all just standing around as you sit there and hit ground balls all around? They could be doing other things. So they started doing some mental reps or extending the rep where they would each take a baseball out with them, put it in their back pocket. And so when their group wasn't going, they were doing different drills until it was their turn. And we kind of give them a pre-warning of like, hey, just going to the first baseman, third baseman, be ready. Okay, working to the shortstops. And most times we always try to have 2 or 3 fungos going at once, but it allowed those kids, the guy who was behind them would go and would take a mental rep where he was fielding a ground ball, even though his partner in front of him would be taking that. But he would go through the entire motion. Boom. What's up, Cain?
Tim, unpack that a little bit more, maybe outside of a baseball context. You were a wrestling coach, you were a football coach. Now as an athletic director,
Yeah.
you go out to a lot of practices at Stowe High School. Where can coaches around this call, coming from all different sports, where can they build those mental reps into their practice?
Oh, you can build it everywhere. And that's where you taught me a lot on that. Obviously the more lines you can have, the better off you are, the more ways you can get kids involved. But when you don't have enough balls or you don't have enough ways, in wrestling, we used to shadow wrestle. We used to do it by ourselves. There may be two guys wrestling. You were in a group of three. That other guy would practice some of his shots or work on other things. If I was in soccer, I'd be working on creating motion and making sure I'm cutting through where I need to be so that we can have that one touch, and working on getting into those situations. If it was football, I was thinking about what the call was, and I would pretend in my head that I was running the same route as the guy in front of me. Or if I was a running back and I was the next guy up, coach would say, okay, 33 draw. Okay, what am I doing? Okay, I'm taking a small step to the side. I'm sitting for a second. Okay, and mentally I'm going through with my eyes closed. But there's many ways that we can go about that. Coaches making calls and you're on the sideline, just seeing yourself going through the process of those drills, or what my responsibilities were for that play. You want me to keep rolling here?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that concept of of mental reps. And you go to a practice, and for the coaches here, obviously, if you get to watch another team practice who's on your campus, and you get to go see, you'll see how many times people are standing around instead of maybe mentally engaging in what they could be doing. So if it's, for example, at football practice, you've got, the 11 guys running a play on air, and you've got 50 standing behind watching, instead of those 50 maybe lining up in multiple position groups behind 10 yards back, and they're doing the same thing that the group in front of them is doing. So now that you're not running your ones and then your twos and then your threes, you're running your ones, twos, and threes all at the same time, 20 yards separate from each other or 30 yards separate from each other. And you're just moving up and down the field, like 5 yards, turn around, 5 yards the next way, or whatever it is, or 10 yards this way, 10 yards that way. So they're getting 3 times as many reps during practice. And, some of the feedback here from coaches is, well, I like to watch my guys get reps. Well, you can still watch your guys get reps, because while you're watching your twos, your ones are doing nothing, so now just watch your twos, and your ones will still be getting better because they'll be getting reps at what you're doing. So I think it's just a different way to think about practice. And Tim, if I can, I want to, as an athletic director, what are some of the biggest mistakes that maybe you see coaches making that you could help speed up the learning curve for some of the coaches on this Coaching Matters group coaching call? What are some of those mistakes that maybe you see coaches making that, maybe some of the coaches on this call are making that you could help them to avoid?
I would say the first thing is making sure don't always focus on your ones, because what happens is somebody's going to get hurt. Okay. So you want to make sure that your twos and your threes are ready to go. They need to be up to snuff so that when they get in, just because they're not your most talented kid, you may need to actually focus more on them and build them up more. Some of the other things is try not to make your practices stagnant. Add some new things, make sure that you're able to hit everybody's abilities, whether it's working on fundamentals or it's advancing some of your better players. Don't, just because your best player is really good and he does things really well, it doesn't mean that he needs to stop improving. Don't just assume that he's going to continue to make himself better. Most times they actually start to press back, and we tend to not focus on them. We focus sometimes too much on the lower half as well. So make sure you're hitting everybody in your practices, because you got to make everybody better. That's what they're all there for. And that's kind of what their expectation is of you, is that at the end of the day, they're going to be 1% better at the end of practice. Just like the number 16 guy on the bench, your number 1 guy needs just as much attention.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Well, talk to us more about this concept of getting 1% better. I know that's one thing that's been really big, with Fundraising University, is this concept of just continually trying to get 1% better. And as somebody who's already on the forefront of leading fundraising in high school sports, I think the best are always trying to get better. And sometimes I think trying to get better, we can look at, like, we have this mountain to climb. And if I'm taking over a new program, often you're taking over a new program as a coach because there's a lot of work to do. And the guy who was, or gal who was there before you wasn't doing that work. So now you have to dig that out. But just talk about this concept of 1% better and how you use this with your team. And that concept of 14 minutes and 24 seconds is 1%. How do you use this, Tim, with your program?
I try not to have my drills go, when we're working on team drills or things like that, I try not to let them go too long. But when you look at the 14-24, making sure that those kids understand that if they go and they take ground balls out by themselves for 14 minutes, they've now utilized 1% of their day to get better, and I think as you sit around and you look about it, like every morning, our team used to get together before a game and take BP. Okay. And they would go, we have a couple of cages that were set up, and it allowed the kids to kind of talk to one another and just kind of wake up together. But the other part is they were getting better because they had now already taken swings. They had already gone and prepared themselves for today's game before school. And now they're going to go be better in education because they're proving in school that if you go and you take a PE class first and you go to science, you're going to be better in that science class, and vice versa. And as you continue to look into your other classes, but being 1% better, making sure that, taking 14 minutes and 24 seconds to study for a class is going to make me 1% better in that class, and as we sit there, sometimes kids drown themselves, studying for too many hours, trying to focus on and not allowing themselves to take those breaks. Just let them know, hey, 14-24, let's get 1% better. Make sure you're doing that, whether it's in the morning, whether it's right before you go to bed. It doesn't always have to be right at once. One of the things that is good as coaches is have a 360 perspective. This is a hard one for all of us, but get that full circle view of who you are and what your program's about. Sometimes there might be some humbling things that you hear. You may find out that there may be things that you think you're doing all the time, but all of a sudden you hear from somebody that, who comes to your games and you're like, hey, what do you think about our team? Well, they don't hustle. Yeah, we do. Nope, they don't hustle all the time. You think they do, but they don't. There's always a little bit more, or all of a sudden is, what, your guys don't show as good a sportsmanship as you think they do. They kind of have a little arrogance to it. Okay, what do you think I need to do to fix that? So, but always being able to get that allows you to be a little bit better as a coach. Again, post game, I always talk about praise the game, praise the great things your teams did, and talk with your players about the game. Let's have them be involved in that conversation. Don't always be the dictator. What do we do well? What do we do better? How can we do it better? Or, what was good? What can be better? What's next? How can we do that better next? So.
Yeah, Tim, I want you to unpack this concept of well, better, how, and good, better, next, because the well, better, how is something that, that Corbin Burns would do after every start this year and in his Cy Young season is he would look at the statistics, from his start. He would watch every pitch that he threw. He would track whether he executed or didn't execute. And then he would do a well, better, how. He would send it to me. Then that would start up a conversation. So I want to have you unpack how you use well, better, how here in a second. But first, I just want our coaches who are on the call with us here tonight or listening to the podcast to understand that Fundraising University is always looking for individuals who are competitive, self-starters, empathetic, organized, and teachable to partner with. And if you're a current coach on this call or interested in learning more about how Fundraising University can help you raise funds so you can dream big and do more, or if you're interested in becoming an assistant coach or area representative with positions open within Fundraising University and adding an extra $5,000 to $20,000 for your efforts, please contact Mike Bahoon, mbahoon@fundraisingu.net. Or you can visit fundraisingu.net/franchising to find out more about becoming a Fundraising University franchise owner. Tim, unpack that concept of well, better, how. How often would you do that with your team? And when you're talking about doing a 360 evaluation, would you do a well, better, how outside just the players in your program? Would you go into, people you respected in the school, other coaches, people in the community, parents? Like how far out of your inner circle would you go with that well, better, how?
Okay. Well, the well, better, how, I'll start with my team. I do that with every facet of our game. What do we do well as an offense? Okay. Or at the plate? What do we do? What can we do better at the plate? Well, coach, we can be better disciplined at seeing pitches. I felt like we were always jumping out on the first pitch and we were rolling it over. Or how can we go about fixing this in the future? We do it with a running game. What do we do well? Well, coach, I felt like we all made our turns really well. I thought we went first to third really well, because we saw the ball all the way through to the outfielder. We took the peak at the right time when we were supposed to, when we were stealing. Okay, well, what didn't we do well? Well, coach, some of us were slowing up before we got to home plate. It almost bit us on an out that was made, but so-and-so happened to make it. And then we would do it with pitching. We talk with our pitchers about it. We talk with our bench. How can you cheer on the team a little bit better? Was our culture good on the bench? Were we staying in the game? Were we focused? Or could we be better at that? And how are we going to do that? I thought we kind of got complacent and kind of sat back. Looking at the 360 view, again, I would talk to some of my administration. I had constant conversations with my ADs. I would talk to some of the people that I constantly would see at our games. My biggest critic was my wife. So I would always come home and I would ask her questions about what she saw, because she has a really good perspective. She was a college softball player. So she's got a really good knack for the game. And then, I would talk to some of the parents, some of the families, and then even some of my friends that would come to games. Hey, what'd you see? What interests you? What were you unimpressed with? Some of those are tough questions to ask. And some of those answers are even harder to receive, because it may be something that you may take pride in, that comes back to you. And I would talk to my alumni when they came to games and say, hey, what do you think? You've gotten soft. You get that every once in a while. You're not jumping all over people anymore. You've lightened up. No, I got a new perspective. I'm trying to work with these kids to make them better. I'm not looking to attack them and get all over people. So that's how the 360 typically worked. And I would sometimes do it anonymously with kids, where I would just want answers. I'd send out a Google Doc and say, hey, fill this out. I don't want to know who's sending it to me back, but here you go. So.
And other questions coming in here for Coach Tim Albertson. Feel free to post those inside of our chat. We'll make sure we get those answered. And Tim, appreciate you being with us here, man. And I know you're about to talk about how to handle adversity, which is something I think we all can benefit from.
So I think one of the things that we do talk about, not enough though, is how we do handle situations, whether it's on the field, whether it's during a moment in the game, or just how we handle ourselves when stuff gets tough in life. And I think this is one of the moments that we need to talk about with our kids a little bit more, whether it's teaching them how to go to something. I'm going to, coach, I didn't make that pitch, or I didn't get that call. I'm going to turn and look at the scoreboard, or I'm going to go and turn at the left foul pole, because every field's got a left foul pole, or there's a sign, that I'm going to look at our field. Okay. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to center myself. I'm going to look up and down my body, and I'm going to be ready when I get back on the mound, or when I get back in the box, or I'm going to swipe the box clean after a pitch that before I get into the batter's box, because that last person's at bat's over. My last at bat's over. This is I want a clean, beautiful box to step into, because now this is my batter's box. Having something to say to ourselves. Good. Guess what? We're going to get better because that happened. Jocko Willink, I've read all his books. I love him. He can be a little too blunt at times, but he's pretty funny. And but he, one of his things is that if you've ever heard his Spotify song, he just sits there and the whole thing is just good. We're going to get better. Hey, we don't have enough cannons. Good. We're going to have to find another way to do that. We don't have, they're taking away one of our alleys. Good. We have to find another way to do this. Cain, I read his book, So What Next Pitch? That's one of the ones I constantly use with my kids. Hey, something's happening. Hey, that pitch is over. We got to play for this next one. Win. What's important now? Trevor Moawad, great book. It takes what it takes. Keep moving forward. He talks about the quarterback from Seattle and how he continues. He's in a game where they may be out of reach, and he continues to focus on just that moment. Hey, we've got to do this. We've got to continue to move forward. We got to focus on now. And if we can go and get these points, that's all we can do right now. And then Sorensen and Cain having routines to handle adversity and being able to slow down the moment. Sometimes in life, we don't slow down enough. And we've got to be able to do that as well. And then understanding that adversity is going to happen in life. How are we going to handle it? It's about more than just the game. It's about how we approach it in life. Big thing.
Yeah. Keep going here, man. It's great. Appreciate you.
Hey, no problem. Make it memorable. That's the other thing, is make it memorable. Do the little things for your teams, give them team pictures, game booklets, honor your seniors. I was continuing to go on here, and then I was texting with Cain when I was going through this stat, but make it memorable for the kids. My philosophy has always been, I want the kids to leave this knowing that they had a good time. Okay. Whether we win a state championship or in the quarters, or, we play a great game or we get blown out. Okay. What did we take from this? What did we do well? Let's make sure it's a good memory, or just the season. My first season, we were 4-13. We almost beat the team that went on to be state champs. They had to throw us out. They had a perfect throw home to catch us, to beat us. Guess what? That's a great season. We did some things well. We culminated and we played really, really well. We peaked at the right time. Focusing on the things that we can control, and being able to make those possibilities happen. Canner.
Oh yeah. Question comes in from Tyler Whitebread. And Tyler said, Coach Tim, what's an example of a routine that can be used during an adverse situation to help a player get back to being present?
Great question. First things first, take a deep breath, step off, take a breath, allow yourself to slow down. I don't know if Canner's done the box breathing with you, but just breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, breathe out for 5 seconds, and just take that moment to slow everything down. Step off the rubber, allow yourself, rub the ball off while you're doing this. If you're a pitcher, if you're in the batter's box, just step out, take a deep breath, look down at your coach after you've taken that breath, get your sign, get yourself, maybe take a look. I don't know if you have a spot. I had an Easton bat, so I always looked at the big E that was on there before I got into the box. So I'd hold my bat straight out, I'd look at it, take another breath, tap the other side of the plate as I got into the box, stepped in, and now all of a sudden I'm telling myself, rip, 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 giving myself an opportunity. Or if I'm getting on the mound, I get my sign, I take another breath, pound it, pound it, pound it. And I'm looking to pound that spot that my catcher's given me.
Awesome. Tim, another question came in from Al. He said, as an athletic director now at Stowe High School, have any of the other teams in your school, right? Any other teams on your campus, have they bought into the same mental performance practices and principles? Has it spread throughout the other teams at your school yet?
We're getting there. It's been an interesting 5 months, but yes, I've actually been fortunate enough. I have a couple coaches. I love listening to our girls soccer coach. He just won his back-to-back championships this past fall, and listening to him talk about the different adversities that have been going on during games, and getting his girls to focus on, here's what we need to do to be able to be better, and this is what's got to happen. He's constantly coaching those kids as they come off the field and telling them about things. But he always talks about, listen, this is our game. This is why it's our game, because today could be the day that they play their best game. So we've got to come out and we've got to play our best game every single time we come out here. And that was one of the most impressive things I had seen. So yes, I've gotten some buy-in. One of the bigger things is that I'm not a big fan of body language. I think body language presents itself to everybody in the crowd. It teaches people how you're doing, how you're feeling. If I start sagging my arms or I start throwing my hands out, guess what? As an opponent, I'm beating you. I know I've got you beat. I'm going to keep attacking you. And as soon as your head goes down, we're going to attack you with the ball in soccer, or we're going to come at you after a big play. If you're closing down, we're coming after you again in football. So my coaches talk a lot about that. My boys coach did a great job with that, and just making sure that they continue to fight and battle. And hey, we have no control over his perspective. We've got to continue to play this game. We've got to continue to move forward. I had a field hockey team who's been in the state finals the last 10 years and has had unfortunate outcomes most of those times. But this year we didn't have enough girls, guess what, to field the team, but yet they continue to stay together and try and play a JV season. I was really impressed by the coach and how she kind of handled that situation and taught those girls, listen, we're going to make the best of this situation. We're going to have the best time we possibly can. So other questions, Brian?
I'm trying to continue to unmute myself here. I got diagnosed with a COVID yesterday, so
Oh,
yeah,
sorry to hear it.
yeah, it is what it is. Just sitting here coughing the whole time, so I keep forgetting to unmute myself. Usually I don't mute myself. So Tim, last thing here. I know, man, you have some book here, some favorite authors that you have on there. So maybe let's have you run through that, and then I'll ask you our final question here, and we'll call it a day, man. I appreciate you being with us here on the Coaching Matters Group Coaching Podcast.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me. Obviously, any of Cain's 12 pillar series, if you can go through that whole book series, that thing outlines everything that he talks about with the 10 pillars. But at the beginning, he had 12. He's compacted some of those, which I appreciated. But it all runs together and it's great. And it's a great story. I'm telling you, my 9-year-old could read the whole thing. She would love it. So What Next Pitch was a great one. The Leadership Clock, again, talking about role modeling. And how to approach situations and teach leadership. Great book. John Gordon, I think, has one of the best books called The Energy Bus, and it's all about bringing energy and how different having energy and not having energy can be. It's about being that fountain, not the drain. Winning the locker room first is a great one. And again, I love one word. That was a great book. Trevor Moawad. It Takes What It Takes. It's a great story. Again, if I could just remember what the quarterback's name is for the Seahawks, but he did a great. It's basically a book relating with him and kind of just his transformation with Trevor moving forward. It's a great book. Actually, it was recommended by Cain, and I can only pass it on. Darren Donnelly, he's got some great books. Josh Metcalf, Win in the Dark is one of my favorites. It actually got me working out in the morning. And it just, the fact is that everything you can do behind closed doors that nobody sees is only going to make you shine more in the spotlight. So it's a great book. Pound the Stone, Chop Wood, Carry Water, understanding daily routines, getting 1% better, continuing to stay focused and grinding. And then Aframo, his books I just think are great. He just came out with a leadership book that I just started and I'm halfway through. So, and a couple of my favorites here for you. There's my podcast selection on my ride to Stowe and from Stowe. I listen to Zach Sorensen. If you're on here, congratulations, man, on the World Series. I know you've been involved in a few of these, but I know you also presented earlier this month. Mental Performance Daily, that 3-minute words of advice or perspective from Cainer has always been a good one. Success Hotline. I know Rob Gilbert has done a lot for Cainer, but he turned me on to this and I've been listening to it or calling in on a daily basis. One that I found is Lindsey Wilson. She was a basketball player. She adds in some mindfulness. She does some what she calls a braver, which is some breathing exercises right after she gives her motivational piece or perspective change. But the braver's been great. They do some affirmations at the end. Justin Sua, Increase Your Impact. He does a great job. If I recall, Cainer, is Jake Thompson trying to become an MPM? Is that what I saw this morning? Oh, you're muted, bud. He's muted.
Yeah, good. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's been one that I've been following for quite a while, and he has so many great podcasts. His Monday, Fridays are very quick, like Cainer does on a daily basis. But his Wednesday one is a really great focus on different things, and he's got some great motto words. Outwork your talent is one of the ones that I've always found and enjoyed. And then the mayor's office, Sean Casey, ever since I had him on the podcast before with us, I've been following those, and he's done a great job with that. So
awesome.
I would recommend all of these to your kids.
Beautiful. Well, Tim, man, I appreciate you taking time out of your hectic schedule, being a father and being a new AD and just all the stuff that you got going on. Last question I have for you here tonight is, and thanks again for being a guest on the Coaching Matters Group Coaching Podcast, sponsored by Fundraising University. If we could remove the skull cap of everybody listening to this podcast, and we could plant one seed of success that would germinate, and that would be the Tim Albertson seed. So the one tip, the one thought, the one piece that you want our coaches to take away, what would that one seed be, Tim?
Oh, geez, here we go. Smile and greet everybody like it's the first time you've ever met them, because your first impression to all of those people could be a lasting lifetime impact to that person. It may be the only time you ever meet them, but one of the first things that came to me from a student here is In a note that I got from one of the teams was, "You're always smiling, and it makes my day when I see you at school, because you always are cheerful and ready to go." Let the kids know that you enjoy them and love what you do. We all stress over some of the little things, and we work really hard at what we do. But the bigger part is, if you do it with a smile, that's what everybody sees. Nobody sees what's going on underneath. It's kind of like the duck. Be calm up top, but inside you can be running all over the place or swimming all over.
Awesome. Tim Albertson, it's been a pleasure, man, to reconnect and to get you on the Coaching Matters Group Coaching Podcast, sponsored by Fundraising University. Best to you this holiday season. I appreciate you making time to sit down and join us and make us all better, man. Thanks for being here.
Tanner, thanks for having me. Good luck to all the coaches and everybody on here.
Awesome. Thanks for everybody joining us here. Our next Coaching Matters Group Coaching Podcast will be on Monday, December 6th. And we will talk about building a championship culture and coaching the mental game with Eric Bakich, head baseball coach at the University of Michigan. That will be from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday, December 6th, 2021. We'll see you then.